What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into Wildcat Cave. We've taken some time off here on the channel. There's no doubt about that. With it being summer, life happening, not a ton going on. So I'm glad to be back. I'm glad you guys are joining in. There's been a lot to talk about and also kind of nothing to talk about. So make sure you guys jump in the live chat here. Bring up some topics you guys want to talk about. Of course, I have a list of things. We're going to talk a little baseball, some basketball, football. So we're going to be all over the place tonight. This might not be the longest live stream we've ever done, but we definitely got some stuff to talk about. Like I said, it's been about a month since we've been on here. So Pope has a full roster. The baseball team went to the World Series. Football season is literally next month. So we have a lot to discuss tonight. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming up this summer. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. And again, thank you guys for tuning in either right now live or when this goes out kind of as a podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in. As always, if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I know, like I said, I know we've been in a little bit of a dead period here, but make sure you're subscribed now. Of course, if you're not already, hit the notification bell. That way, if there is a dull in the action here on the channel, when it picks back up, you're ready to go. You'll know exactly what's going on every time there's a post or video come out. You'll be alerted. Make sure you like the video, like the live stream, share it, put it on your social media, share it to your friends, tell your friends to watch, and of course, make sure they subscribe as well. There's some membership tiers you can check out if you want to. But other than that, that's kind of the housekeeping things. It's good to see you guys again. I'm glad to be back. Just a little housekeeping here. I do go on a cruise next week, so I'm going to try to put out a video before then, hopefully. But if not, then I will see you guys after that, which will be probably towards the end of the month. But by that time, we'll be ready to ramp up the football stuff, and we'll be looking forward to Southern Miss in week 1. But now that all that is officially taken care of, I hope you guys comment. I hope you guys join in this live stream. Like I said, I always enjoy interacting with you guys there in the comments. It's a good way to get feedback. It's a good way to find fun topics to talk about. You guys usually get me off topic and on tangents and stuff. But I hope we have a good night here tonight. I hope it's a lot of fun for you guys. I know it's going to be fun for me. And without further ado, let's go ahead and start with our first topic. We're going to start kind of in reverse order of the season. So we'll start with baseball. We'll move backwards into basketball, and then we will finish with some football stuff. As far as baseball goes, Nick Mingione, the Cats tie for the SEC title. They had an early exit in the SEC tournament, host a regional, win it, host a super, win it, go to Omaha. They win one game against, somebody's going to tell me because I already forgot, NC State. They beat NC State in Omaha, lose their next two to A&M and Florida. All in all, I think it's hard to call this season anything but a success. This is a team who has never hosted a super and never been to Omaha, the only team in the SEC that's never made it to Omaha, and now you can't say that anymore. Every team in the SEC has now made it to Omaha, so a huge step forward for Mingione. It's crazy to think that just 2 years ago, he was, a loss to Tennessee away from not being the coach anymore. If they hadn't beaten Tennessee in that series at home 2 years ago, I don't think Mingione was the coach last year, which of course means he isn't the coach this year. They play a really fun brand of baseball, something that draws the crowd out. You can be really good, but if you're boring, you don't get the big crowds. This team is not that. They were good and they were exciting. Extra bases, stolen bases, not scared to bunt, not scared to steal. So overall, just a really fun brand of baseball. And if you guys follow me on Twitter and stuff, you guys know I've watched more. I'm not a baseball guy. I grew up not watching baseball, not liking baseball, not caring about baseball. And I still don't care about the majors. But I found myself really I watched, especially from like the end of the basketball season on, I watched a ton of this baseball team. I tried to watch every game. Of course, it's a lot of games, hard to do. But I watched every regional, every super. If I wasn't there in person, I was watching on TV. So Mingione has really built this program into something that casual baseball fans like myself really can get behind. And that's kind of his strong point as a coach. He's a rallying force in the Kentucky baseball program, which is something this program desperately needed. aside from the lack of success, there just wasn't a ton to get behind in personality and style and that sort of thing. And it's really fun to see the fan base come together around a sport that, it's not one of the major two sports. It's a tertiary sport that, maybe niche fans like, but the BBN as a whole didn't necessarily rally around. And when they went to Omaha, it really felt like Kentucky took over. I'm mad I couldn't go. I really wanted to. I tried to make it happen, but there was just no way for me to get up there in time on that short of notice. But anyway, like I said, great year for the Cats. Any critiques or negativity that's going to come out of this is going to be nitpicking. It just is. I mean, for a program that's never reached that sort of success, to then retrospectively look back on it and be like, well, they could have done this or they should have done that. That's really nitpicky. But we're going to do it because we're Big Blue Nation and we're Kentucky fans, and that's just what we do. So drop your opinions and thoughts on the baseball season in the comments here. We'll go through them. I'll put them on the screen. We'll discuss them together. But overall, I think this team had a lot of strengths. Like I said, they play a very aggressive style. Their philosophy is that we're playing with 18 to 22-year-old kids. They're going to make mistakes, and we're going to put pressure on them and force those mistakes. And largely, that's what they did. If you guys are anything like me, they started off the season really hot, blowing through some of the bad teams, but I was like, this isn't going to be sustained when it comes to the SEC. They lost to Kennesaw State early, so it was like a red flag that went up. And then, they just kind of steamrolled and kept winning. And like I said, I'm not a baseball guy. So I couldn't tell you the X's and O's and why certain plays worked or why they would pick somebody up at first instead of throw home and stop the run. I don't know any of that stuff. But what I do know is that this team was really good. They went into the World Series, the number 2 overall seed, right behind the eventual champions, Tennessee. The one thing I think that really plagued this team all season long, but more so as they got into SEC play and then, of course, the postseason, is just their lack of depth in the pitching staff and in the bullpen. You had Poozer and Moore, who seemed to be really, really good players, really, really good pitchers. If those guys were out there, they threw really well. Even if they struggled, I can't remember which postseason game it was. I believe Mason Moore started off terrible in the first maybe 1 or 2 innings. And then by the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th inning, he was I think he might have gave up a hit. So with guys like that, they're good when you're playing a regular season because you get 2, 3, 4 days, a week off in between games, in between series. So you can throw your 2 best the first 2 days, clinch the series, throw your 3rd, maybe you win, maybe you don't, not a big deal. But when you're in that postseason style where you're playing back-to-back days, you need depth because those guys can't go throw 100 pitches and then turn around and throw 40 or 50 more the next day to get you through a couple innings. They need this rest. And that's what I think ultimately was the downfall of this team. Bats went cold just a little bit there in Omaha, but still had opportunities to make plays and they just couldn't capitalize on it. Florida, obviously Jack Caglione, really good player, really good team. They struggled to win the series in Florida. The 2 wins they got were in extra innings, and then Florida beat them like 10-1 the other game. So there's no shame in losing that game. They probably, they didn't help themselves any by getting down like 7-1 and then like 11-2 or something, whatever the score was. So that was a pretty miserable game to watch overall, but it's hard to be upset when you make it that far and you throw your best guys when you can. But like I said, I think that style, the postseason, just wasn't meant for a team like Kentucky that has 2 really good pitchers and then not much after that. Nyman and some of the other pitchers, O'Brien was decent most of the year, but not like outstanding. And they might be able to finish off some bad teams or some okay teams. When they got into that Omaha, the SEC tournament, it really came to bite them in the butt. So that's something Mingione has to address this offseason. They have to get more consistent depth out of their bullpen. On top of that, they have a lot of guys leaving. I haven't followed it super closely, but what I have seen, it looks like not many guys are currently on the roster. I know they obviously have gotten some pieces in the portal, but they've lost more than they've gotten from what I can tell. I think Nolan McCarthy just left, or is at least in the portal, entertaining the idea of leaving. I know they lost one of their assistant coaches to Georgia, and I believe he was their lead recruiter, which is probably why you see a lot of these guys hopping in the portal. But it is a little disappointing that after, such an incredible season, number 2 overall seed, co-champs in the SEC, a run to Omaha, a lot of guys leaving. That's kind of disappointing to see. Let's see. No worries, man. You're not too late. You're only 11 minutes in here, so you got plenty of time. Glad you could make it. But it was just sad. It's hard to watch, a team that looked like they had so much fun, and the Get Weird and the hats and the Spider-Man and the stuff that they did in the dugout. It looked like they really liked each other, really had a lot of fun, obviously had a lot of success. And to see most of them leave, I don't know, just kind of hurts. You want as many of those players back as you can to build on for next year. But Mingione's shown that he can hit the portal and hit it hard, but even the people that kind of seem like they know what's going on seem a little concerned. So maybe there's something we don't know. Obviously, we have no control over it. All we can do is sit, wait, and hope. But like I said, Mingione's shown he can hit the portal hard and hit it well sometimes. So hopefully he can do that again next year, bring in some really talented guys, and see if we can't make another run back to Omaha. Because like I said, as a casual baseball fan, not even a baseball fan, as someone who actively disliked baseball, this was a really fun season to watch and a really fun team. And I had a ton of fun following their journey to Omaha. And I hope we can do it again. But like I said, I know the recruiter went to Georgia. Again, seems like a weird move. Unless I don't know that he got some sort of promotion. Like, he's not their head coach. I know that. So I don't know if it was a money thing, what it was. But for him to leave and then to see a bunch of players hop in the portal, probably not a great sign. But guys like Nolan McCarthy, I think Devin Burks is still on the roster as of right now. And I know Burks is like the heart and soul of this team. Like, he was like the vocal leader. He's the catcher. He's a big deal for this baseball program. But man, it took all the way until the final game to realize that Ryan Nicholson, the dude with 20-something home runs, doesn't need to be batting 6th. And I'm not sure I saw Devin Burks get a hit the last half of the year. He was just, I don't know. His bat was just cold, I guess, man. Like, it seemed like the only way he ever reached was on error or a hit by pitch, or he got walked on accident. Like, ain't nobody walking him purposely. I don't know. It was a mess. We do need some batters. Not hating on Mingione's system, but getting some really good batters and pitchers are missing pieces. Yeah, man. Like, I know you, like I said, you just joined, so you probably didn't hear my whole rant on the pitching staff. But that was, in my opinion, with the way this team plays, you don't need guys we don't need teams that have 5 or 6 guys hitting 20 home runs in a year to win. We don't need that. There's teams aggressive. They can steal. We saw them steal home this year. So I don't know. I mean, it helps to have, obviously, more than one guy hit 20 home runs. Nicholson was great this year. And if we can replicate that with a guy or two next year, then good. But I don't think we need to be a slugging team necessarily to win a bunch of games. I think, the pitching definitely is what we're going to need to win the World Series. And then just get a little more production out of your supporting bats and have one star like Nicholson. And I kind of think you're good to go. Obviously, Daly hit a walk-off in the World Series. McCarthy hit plenty of home runs. Lopez. So plenty of guys can hit the ball. Not a ton of power, but enough there when you have a guy that can go up there and hit one out of the park every at bat. So overall, I think pitching is a little more of the problem, but definitely it never hurts to have a couple sluggers in there as well. But let's see. Like I said, this probably is not going to be the longest live stream we've ever done here on the channel. But like I said, we got a lot to go over. We're 15 minutes in. We've hit a lot of baseball topics, and then we'll move into some basketball now. If you guys have any comments or anything about baseball, go ahead, put them in the comments section as well. We can always go back and forth between these. But let's talk a little UK basketball. I'm going to pull the roster up here so I have it. All right. So for Mark Pope's first roster. I think it is mostly complete. There's 12 guys now. There is still one roster spot he is holding, whether that be for a project freshman, whether that be for an overseas type of player, whatever it is. We'll wait and see what Pope has up his sleeve for that. It's funny, actually, as I was going through and setting up my topics for the live stream here, for these banners that are going across the bottom, the banners on my last live stream were still on there. And one of them was, the coaching search topic of after Cal left. And it was a list of who I thought we should hire and who to avoid. And funny enough, Mark Pope was on the list to avoid. And of course, that's who we got. Now, at the time, all the details I don't think were out about the Mark Pope hire. Now, of course, we kind of know how it unfolded a little more. And I just want to touch on that real quick before we dive, headlong into the nuts and bolts of this thing. I know, we went after Scott Drew, who I think would have been a fine hire, a boring hire. But, all in all, I think everybody here would have been happy with a national championship level coach. Once he saw and his family saw, the level of crazy that Big Blue is, I think they ultimately decided that's not what they wanted. And that's fine. I respect that. At least they got out before they got in, and then realized it and was like, oh, I don't know about this. So, Scott Drew didn't pan out. And then they threw an absolute mountain of money at Dan Hurley, and he turned us down. So what do you do? I mean, you can't begrudge Kentucky for that. They did what they could do, man. I mean, if you offer a dude $100 million and he says no, you shake his hand and say, okay, good for you, man. And then it actually ended up working out okay in Kentucky's favor because then, of course, just a few weeks ago, the Lakers come knocking on Dan Hurley's door. Premier NBA franchise, a chance to coach LeBron, a chance to coach AD, possibly build something in the brightest lights in the NBA. And they offered him a very, very similar deal to what Kentucky offered. And alas, his wife told him they're staying in Storrs, Connecticut. So good for her, man. She's something. She seems like she has a lot of influence, and good for her. But anyway, he turned down the NBA as well. So it looks like he wasn't leaving Storrs for anything. So that's just what it is. Maybe one day if the Knicks knock on his door, that seems to be like his pie in the sky, his like dream job. Maybe he goes to the Knicks one day. I don't know. We'll see. I was really hoping he'd kind of go to the Lakers and get UConn to take a step back, but either way, we'll see what happens. Yeah, and so after you lose out on Hurley and Scott Drew, I think the administration came to Mitch and was like, here's who we're not interviewing. And that list included Bruce Pearl, Will Wade, and some other guys that a lot of fans wanted. Like, I would have been okay with Bruce Pearl, but, Nate Oates was on that list of do not contact, along with Nate Oates had some other off-the-court things that would prevent him from becoming the coach. But that kind of, and that leaves you, after you get through, your top tier guys with Hurley and Drew, and then that second group of guys is mostly not allowed to contact group according to the administration at Kentucky. That leaves you with an odd pool of people. You have Mark Pope, Shaka Smart, TJ Otzelberger. It's hard to remember all the names now, but like when you're in that group and that's who's left, well, now is Mark Pope much worse than Shaka Smart? Shaka has some success, but it's been 15 years ago. Otzelberger has done nothing. Tommy Lloyd at Arizona has had similar results to Kentucky in the tournament the past few seasons. So out of those coaches, all of a sudden, Mark Pope is starting to not look crazy. And I think I said this then, if it comes down to a Mark Pope and someone that's fairly equal to him, sure, go ahead and give the nod to Pope for coming here, but you don't do it just because he came here. If it was between Hurley and Pope and we went with Pope, then I'd be pretty upset. But I don't think that was the case. We got turned down by our top choices, and then out of the pool of people who were left, all else being equal, and it mostly was, I don't mind giving the nod to Pope there. So that's how it came to be with Pope. I think most of the fans since have kind of rallied. Obviously, they had the big press conference and all that stuff we've covered. But it seems like the fan base is fully behind Pope. He's built what seems to be a pretty good coaching staff. They've started their summer practices. So everything seems to be trending in the right direction so far. Let's see. Pope seems to be a pretty good choice. But we'll obviously be waiting to see if Pope can coach at this level against expanding powerful conference. Yeah, I mean, right now, man, everything looks good. Everything sounds good. But how many national championships have we won in, July with Cal? It seems like every year we're winning the championship in July, and then we have a letdown. So it's all just a big waiting game at this point. But the coaching at this level doesn't concern me a ton. He's a super smart guy. Had one of the most efficient offenses in the country. Not a bad defense. But to me, it's going to be, can he recruit at this level? He doesn't have a track record of success. He doesn't have, the NBA stuff that Cal had. He's not this big, name. He's not a Bill Self. He's not a Cal. He's not a Hurley. These other massive names in college basketball. He's not them. He's not a Bruce Pearl. He has a really good personality, but he's not a Bruce Pearl personality. So that's going to be my thing is going. Obviously, it was too late in the season to really recruit a ton of kids this year, but can he, going into next season, can he recruit the high-level 5-star guys that Kentucky needs to have in order to contend for national championships? And how far will he lean into that? College basketball, we've said 1,000 times, is getting older. So is he going to go with 4 or 5 or 6 freshmen, or is he going to go with just his select 2 or 3 and fill in the pieces? I think he should do the latter, but we'll see what happens. And then AFIO says, I think Pope is going to light up UK. His offense is similar to Hurley, and he now has access to top talent and NIL deals. That seems to be the consensus. At least, I don't know about consensus, but at least what most fans have bought into up to this point. But like I just said, it's all a big waiting game until something happens. All right. So now I'm actually going to pull up the roster, and we'll kind of go guy by guy, and we'll see. I'll kind of give you guys my take on it. I'm just going straight down UK's list. You got Ainsley Almanor. Don't know a ton about him. I think he's the Fairleigh Dickinson transfer, if I remember correctly. Big dude, big body. The thing about Pope and his system, all of his big dudes, he's going to believe can shoot the ball. All the reports coming out of the summer practices are that this team is going to shoot 33s a game. And not like Cal says they're going to shoot 30, actually do it. So any guy that Pope goes after, he's going to believe that they can score at all 3 levels. So I'm just going to go on the assumption that that's the case for these guys. But I don't expect Ainsley Almanor to be a starter. He probably, in my opinion, ain't going to see the court a ton this year with the guys ahead of him. But he may, and you never know how Pope's going to play his guys. I know he likes to play a deep roster of, 9, 10, 11 guys. But we'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, don't know a ton about him. Hope he works out. I expect him to be a little more of a bench player. And then you have Kobe Brea, transfer from Dayton, the best three-point shooter in college basketball last year, shooting just over 50%, I believe. I think he hit 50 out of 99 threes that he took. So by percentage, the best shooter, I think Reed was second by percentage, maybe first by makes, however they calculate that. But Kobe Brea is likely going to be our starting 2 guard. Let me put this up here. He is likely going to be our starting number 2. Obviously a lights out shooter. That's going to be his role on this team. I don't know. I think he's going to be a guy. He's going to be a catch and shoot 3-point guy. He's obviously an older player. So I think he's going to be, I don't know that he'll be our leading scorer because we have a lot of guys that can contend for that. I think he will be up there, maybe second or third in minutes and probably second in scoring, maybe third. I'll go third in scoring, but he's going to be one of our better players, I believe. I think on this stage and this platform, he has an opportunity to, number one, cash some checks, and number 2, really put himself out there. This was Mark Pope's kind of first big recruiting win. When Kobe Brea listed his final 5 options for transfer schools, it was all the 5 blue bloods. So kid knows what he's doing. He's playing the game correctly. But I think he's going to be a big piece of this team. I think he may lack a little speed, and I think he may lack a little defense, but that's all stuff that can be either taught or coached around. Let's see. He seems to be setting up heavily on pick and rolls. Yes, if you watch his offense, it's a lot of motion. It's a lot of down screens. It's a lot of backside screens coming, moving without the ball. So there will rarely be points where, something's not happening on the court. As there were in the past few years under Cal, we've seen a lot of stand in your corner and shoot, or, everybody spread out and let the guy go one-on-one. You're not going to see that. Reports have came out of the summer practices of how big of a difference the practices are from Cal to Pope, which we all kind of knew was coming, but I think was a shell shock for a lot of people when it came to fruition here. So I think underneath Cal, these summer practices you get, I think they were more about just like chilling, getting to know each other, start a bond. Obviously they're going to work on a few things, but it's mostly just getting in there and learning to play with each other. As to where Pope, it seems like, is really like coaching these dudes. Like, here is this play, and this is, you're going to come up to the wing, and then he's going to set a pick, and then you're going to fly, and it's going to be completely different. You're going to see sets to get guys open, and it seems like he's been much in these practices has focused a lot more early on, the system and making what he wants out of each guy in this position and in that position. And when you're here, this is what you need to do. So it's a lot more in-depth coaching. Not that Cal didn't do any of that. I'm not trying to say that. But it seemed like, at least in the summer practices, Cal was more of a, let's just get in here, get some work in, and head on out. And that showed last year when we were awful at defense, and we even had extra practices to get ready for Global Jam. So, that is what it is. But by all signs, it seems like Mark Pope has taken a different approach to this. And then up next is Lamont Butler. I think he is probably going to be our starting point guard right now. Dude from San Diego State, been to a Final Four. He's hit clutch shots in the tournament. So I'm fine with him. I think I don't know that he's 6'2", 200 pounds, so he's a good build. Maybe just a touch shorter than I would want, but only by an inch or so. But he's got good size. So he's going to be he'll withstand the SEC. We've seen that at times with some of the smaller guards we've had, Severe, Kaysen, some injuries, Ty. Some of these smaller guards, they get beat up in the SEC. At 205 pounds, I think he's going to be okay. He should be able to beat and bang with these dudes. I'm not super familiar with him. I don't know what necessarily on the court he's going to bring, but I do believe he's going to be our starting point guard. But all signs seem like, it's good stuff coming from him. And then you have Andrew Carr, which is probably the most underrated player on this roster right now. Everybody wants to talk about Kobe Brea. They want to talk about Jackson Robinson. They want to talk about, all these other guys. But Andrew Carr may end up leading the team in minutes and in points. If it's not Jackson Robinson, it's probably Andrew Carr that leads this team in points. He's a 6'11" big, but plays more like a stretch 4. He's going to be out on the wing facing the basket. He's not your Oscar Tshiebwe that's going to go get you 28 rebounds. Although he can rebound the ball well, he's much more of a KD mold. Not that, of course, he's going to be Kevin Durant or anything of the sort, but he's more that type. He's a face-up, face to the basket type of big. Not scared to shoot the three. Shot, I believe, 37% at Wake Forest last year. So going to be a really good player for Kentucky. Seems to fit Mark Pope's system. Mark Pope loves big dudes that can shoot and move, and it seems like that's exactly what he can do. A lot of his highlights I've seen, he also likes to do the 1 or 2 dribble pull-up in the mid-range. around 10 to 12 foot. Seems to be a really strong part of his game, along with spot up threes. And I think you're going to see Pope run some sets to get him open. Besides our Kentucky boys playing, the two players I'm interested in seeing are Jackson Robinson and Amari Williams. Yeah, Jackson Robinson, obviously. Amari Williams, we'll talk about him here in just a second, but I think he has a chance to have a real breakout year because I think he's going to see a lot more minutes than Almanor, but we'll talk about him in just a second. And, of course, Jackson Robinson. Up next, we got Colin Chandler. Kind of a freshman, kind of not a freshman. He's never played college ball before, but he's also not 18. He is a 20-year-old freshman. He was obviously on his 2-year Mormon mission over, I think, in maybe Africa and then Europe or something. But either way, he was, I believe, number 35 overall in his class coming out of high school. In his class, I guess, would have been not this year, but the year before. Who was our point guard that year? That was Oscars last year. Was it Kaysen? Man, my memory's bad. That's going to bug me. But yeah, that's going to be the year we lost to Kansas State. Man, who was our guard that? Either way, whatever. Yeah, so he has been around. He's older. Now, of course, he's been gone for 2 years, and he hasn't been playing competitive basketball in 2 years. So, of course, this is no stranger to Pope, who obviously coached at BYU. They have a program to get him back in game shape and get him ready. It seems like he's still a little behind everybody else. Not that Kansas State team, a different Kansas, the most recent one where we got beat by the little short guard at Kansas State. Antonio Reeves' first season. No, it wasn't Antonio. It was the year before Antonio. Man. Yeah, no, you're thinking 2018 when we got beat by Kansas State with PJ and them. He was in the class of, I guess, 22. But, yeah, so Colin Chandler, like I said, they got a program for guys like him to get ramped back up. It's like a 60 thing. Yeah, okay, so it was Kaysen and Severe. Yeah, I thought so. I just wasn't 100% sure. Yeah, yeah, I knew Severe was on the team because he didn't play against Kansas State. But, yeah, that team. So that's the class that he would have been in Kaysen Wallace's class. But, like I said, coming from BYU, Pope has a program, a 6 to 8 week program for his guys that have been on missions to come back. So Colin Chandler, the reports are that he's still a decent amount behind everybody else. Just rusty, you just came off 2 years of not allowed playing competitive basketball. So, of course, he's going to be a little behind, but the athleticism is there, the talent's there, and by the time the season ramps up, he should be at full go. He is a guy that could be sneaky good. Like I said, top 35 player in his class, and now he's added a couple years of maturity onto it. So, like I said, I don't think he's going to be the starting guard, but I expect him to get a lot of playing time. He's 6'5", so he's a tall guy. If Pope wants to go small, maybe a dude that could play all the way down to a 3. He can score at all 3 levels too. He's not scared to get to the rim. He can finish at the rim. He can obviously shoot outside really well, and he can also hit the mid-range. So a really good piece to have. Could be one of the few NBA talents on this team, even if it's not this year, within the next year or two. Colin Chandler could be one of the few guys on this roster that get time in the NBA. So, of course, a good talent to have there. And then we have Brandon Garrison, a McDonald's All-American, come from Oklahoma State. So a really good player, obviously, if you're an All-American, if you're a McDonald's kid. But he is going to be fighting for minutes with Andrew Carr, Amari Williams, and some of the other bigs. He played good at Oklahoma State. Wasn't a standout star or anything like that. But I definitely think it's good just to have talent, man. If you're telling me I get into McDonald's All-American, I'm good with it. Talent is never a bad thing to have. There's things to be said for experience and skill and age and that sort of thing. But talent is talent, and it's good to have it, and it's bad if you don't, and we at least have it with this guy. I think he's going to be a little probably less physical than Williams. He's going to be somewhere in between Carr and Williams. Andrew Carr, like I said, very versatile, outside shooter, all of that stuff. And then Amari's going to be a little more of your traditional big. And this guy kind of falls somewhere in the middle. He's not a back to the basket, but he's not going to go light it up from three. He's somewhere in the middle. Maybe they throw him in there at like a 4 when you have, I guess, either of them in really, because if you want a physical 4, he might be able to step into that role with Carr at the 5. Or if you have Williams at the 5, he might be a little more versatile than him and be able to play a stretch 4. So he's an oddball fit, I think, to this roster, but definitely has a role and is good for depth, if nothing else. And then you have Kerr Kriisa, however you say his name. He's played against Luka, and he's played against really good talent over in Europe. He's transferred to like 15 different schools. He's, again, basically a three-point specialist, a little turnover prone. I think averages the most turnovers on the team. But if Pope can put him in a system to where he doesn't have to be ball dominant, then I think he's going to be really good because he can shoot the ball. And he's going to be a Duke-type player. And I know we don't like comparing Kentucky guys to Duke guys, but that's what he is. He's going to be the annoying white dude that runs his mouth and hits shots and is everything we hate about players on other teams. But he's going to be on our team, so we're probably going to like it. But he's going to be the Grayson Allen of this team. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not putting that, like, that's not a bad thing on him. It's just what he's going to be. That's what he is. He runs his mouth and he hits shots. What more can you ask for out of a guy? If we can limit his turnovers, put him in a good system, then I think he'll be okay. And I think Pope will do that. But he's a dude that could go for 25 and hit 6 threes on any given night. And then, like I said, he's going to be the team that the other guy hates. He's going to be the guy the other team hates. And that's cool. I'm good with that. We need a guy like that. He'll add life. He'll add energy. Seems like him and Pope have a really good relationship. They like to go back and forth. So that's good. He'll probably be your 6th or 7th man. Not a starter, but also, he's going to get his minutes and his opportunities. Then you have Trent Noah, the Harlan County kid. Was committed to South Carolina. Obviously, after Pope came, wasn't really recruited by Cal. Came to Kentucky after Pope. So I've seen this kid play. I watched his state championship run, all that stuff. Seems to be a good-sized kid. It says here he's 6'5", 209. So he's got good size. He can withstand SEC play. My question is the talent. I don't know where he ranked as far as, recruiting rankings. I don't think it was super high, maybe a 3-star, but he can shoot. I think he is definitely, between the two kids from Kentucky, he's the lesser of the two, and I think that'll show in minutes as well. But I think he has an opportunity to really develop in 3 or 4 years. If he'll stay here that long, and really wait his time, then I think he has a chance. But I don't think his athleticism is nowhere near the level it needs to be to see a lot of minutes right now. He has a lot of growing to do. He has a lot of muscle to put on, a lot of speed to gain. Like I said, he's not uber athletic. He's not uber fast. It's good to have Kentucky kids on the team. I think it's great for the fan base, obviously great for the kid. And I hope he has all the success in the world. I don't go into it expecting another Reed Shepherd. Reed had athleticism times 10 to what Trent Noah has. The shooting is not comparable. Obviously, Reed had a great year as well, and nobody expected that either. But I just don't expect that again out of Trent Noah. It'd be great if it does, but like I said, this is going to be a kid who's going to be hopefully a 3 or 4 year project. Seeing some highs of Trent Noah, he seems to play like Diallo, less athletic slasher, who has the potential to shoot, but will need time to develop that skill. Yeah, he's definitely more of he will and can shoot the ball, but like you said, much more of a downhill slasher. Likes to get to the rim, and it's 6'5" without great athleticism. It's just going to be hard to do in the SEC, to be honest. And then Otega Owe out of Oklahoma, again, a sneaky player that could end up being a really big impact player on the team. He came from Oklahoma. He's a tough physical guy, 6'4", 208. So we have good size guards on this team, guys that will fit in the SEC and be able to go, bully some guys down low. He is on the candidate list for Surprise Player of the Year with Colin Chandler. So I think he's a really good addition. I don't know if he'll start. I would venture to guess that him, Colin Chandler, and Kerr Kriisa are going to be your first three guys off the bench in some order. Because like I said, I think Lamont Butler and Kobe Brea start, and then you take your choice of two bigs and Jackson Robinson at the three, and that's probably your lineup. But I think Oweh is going to get plenty of opportunities to take that starting spot if he wants it. And then you have Travis Perry, obviously a catch and shoot specialist. Going to be a great kid to have on the team, much like Trent Noah. I think he brings a little more in terms of athleticism and shooting to the table than Trent Noah does. And because of that, in this system, I think he'll get a little more run. He's the only dude left over from the Cal regime. So it's cool to have him. It's cool to have two Kentucky kids. I hope he, again, like Trent Noah, I hope he stays a few years, really develops. And then in 3 or 4 years, it's them two leading some of the younger guys in transfers. And then finally, that will bring us down to Jackson Robinson and Amari Williams. Jackson Robinson was the big fish. Kansas went after him. A lot of schools went after him after he decided to come out of the draft, but I think it was a lock from the beginning. He was going to follow Pope from BYU once the draft didn't work out. He, again, is a three-level scorer, in an NBA talent. Obviously, he entered the draft and pulled out. Could have been a fringe second-round pick. So a really good piece, probably the most important piece. He'll lead the team in minutes. He'll likely lead the team in scoring. So a really good piece to have, obviously. Kansas wanted him. A lot of places, a lot of big-name schools wanted him. He was Big 12, I believe, sixth man of the year. So didn't start for Pope last year, but very familiar with the system. Already coaching up guys, when Pope's trying to tell these guys what to do, he's the one being like, this is what he means. This is what you do in this set. Here's how you do this. So, besides just being a really great player, a good coach on the court as well. Robinson's very sneaky around the rim. Also reports that he's already taken that leader role. Yeah. So like I was just saying, everything that's came out says he's your on the court coach. It's always good when your best player is that leader too. It's great if your third, fourth, or fifth best player is your vocal leader. And I think this might be part of the problem we've seen in the past. Like Oscar was probably the best player a couple of years ago, but he wasn't the vocal leader. Kaysen and Ty probably that same role, but were quiet kids. You don't want your fifth player barking and telling people what to do and to the four guys ahead of him that are better than him. Like, you need your best player to be your vocal leader, and that seems like that's what you're getting in Jackson Robinson. And then Amari Williams, transfer from someone put it in the comments, the Northeast. A small school in the Northeast, but he was Defensive Player of the Year along with somebody else was Defensive Player of the Year in their conference. So we're not lacking on defense, finally. But Amari Williams is probably going to be your starting 4, because 4 or 5, whatever. They're going to be interchangeable with him and Andrew Carr. But he's going to be a starter, super physical, super big dude, good player, especially around the rim and in the mid-range. Doesn't have that outside shot like Andrew Carr does. Drexel, yes, thank you, Kentuckian. He transferred from Drexel and was Conference of the Year up there. But, Amari's going to be a starter more than likely and going to be a big piece to this team, especially defensively. He's going to be the rim protector. Not that Andrew Carr can't block shots and stuff, but Amari's just a bigger dude and has more blocks in his career. So I expect him to be the starting 4/5 and be the physical rim protector. Lamont Butler, I think, was the other Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. So we got defense on the inside. We got defense on the perimeter. And I guess that brings me to my strengths and weaknesses. The strengths of this team is obviously going to be the shooting, the style of offense they play, the mind of Mark Pope. And then your weaknesses are going to be, can it come together? Does this system truly work at this level? how good of a coach is Mark Pope? We don't know really. And is there postseason success? We haven't seen it with Pope yet, but that's kind of going to be what it is. That's what he's going to be graded on. So as of right now, again, championships, we've won the July championship a million times, but it doesn't always pan out till March. But all the pieces are there, and if it hits perfectly and everything comes together like we hope, then this team has all the pieces you need to win a championship. You got top-end talent, you have depth, you have shooting, you have defense, you have playmakers, you have guys that can finish at the rim, you have traditional bigs, you have stretch bigs, you got versatile guards, you got size. I mean, there's nothing this team lacks necessarily other than does it come together? Does it all work? And for that, we just don't know until we know. On paper, we look really good. Obviously, I think we came out 23 in the first ESPN poll, but I don't hate that. I think it's a little low. I'd much more think we're in that 15, like 12 to 16 range. But I also understand the argument for 13. We have a coach with no proven success. We have a hodgepodge of players, mostly from small schools. No first-round talent as of right now. So we'll see. But I'm excited. I'm behind it. And I think there's at least a chance to be competitive. And I'm going to touch on this, and I didn't plan to, but I'll touch on it here. I've said it a bunch before. The expectations, in my opinion, you have to finish top 4 in the SEC. You have to make the weekend in the SEC tournament, and you got to make a Sweet 16. That's going to be hard to do. The SEC's tough. We're getting Texas and Oklahoma this year. Tennessee's good. Auburn's good. Alabama's good. South Carolina was decent last year. So there's a lot of teams in the SEC that could jump up. And I think Kentucky's only not been a top 4 seed in the SEC tournament twice in its history, and that's with good coaches and with bad coaches, with Billy Clyde and Adolph Rupp, and with Eddie Sutton and John Calipari and Joe B. Hall and Patino and Tubby. Only 2 teams have not been a top 4 seed in the SEC and not gotten that double bye, and that has to be the standard. If you want to, you can't say top 5. You have to be top 4 in the SEC if you want me to consider this a success, and that one is a non-negotiable. If Mark Pope wants to be considered a success in his first season, you have to be top 4 in the SEC. And for making the weekend in the tournament, there's an argument, okay, if you're top 4, you're starting on Friday. You got to win one. You just got to win one. It's going to be a team you're better than. If you lose, it's going to really suck for it to lose again in the first round of the SEC. But I guess it happens. That one's not a non-negotiable to me, but it's close because you just have to win one. If you can do the first one, you just got to win one game in the SEC and you make it to Saturday. So I think that's not a crazy standard. And then finally, you have to make the second weekend of the SEC tournament, or the NCAA tournament, which of course would be the Sweet 16 Elite 8 round. Something we haven't done since COVID. Something we haven't done since 2019 with Tyler Hero and PJ Washington and Nick Richards. That's really depressing. I get it. The Quickly and Maxey team could have done it, but obviously we didn't get to see that. And then it's just been miserable since then. So please make a Sweet 16. Let our NCAA tournament run go longer than a day or 3. Let us enjoy it for a week, please. But that's my standard for Mark Pope. I think all of those are perfectly acceptable. I think none of those are unreasonable. Like I said, every coach that we've ever had, minus 2 seasons, has been top 4 in the SEC. And if you do that, the rest should fall into place. So, again, I don't think that's a crazy a standard to have there. Now, we are going to talk some football, and then we're going to wrap this thing up and get out of here. Cheers to you guys. I know I was drinking the beer, but now I got the bourbon, so I'm a little late on this. Anyway, let's talk a little football. I will pull up the schedule here. And I just want to say this off the rip, and you guys put this in the comments what you think. I personally, at Wildcat Cave, we here believe that I have lost some faith in Mark Stoops. I have went into every season since before this channel has started. Lady bass player, go Big Blue. I guess that's bass player. Lady bass player, go Big Blue. I agree. Okay. Now, I have lost some faith in Mark Stoops. Every year since this channel has been created and before, I have went into it believing this team or that team was going to win 8, 9, 10 games. That has happened twice. But more often than not, Stoops teams underperform, lose games they shouldn't, and then they pull out a win late in the season as a feel-good win, and all is forgotten. One year it was Tennessee. Last year it was Louisville. Sometimes it's a bowl game. But more than not, Mark Stoops, after creating such high expectations preseason, starting the season hot against crappy teams, absolutely and unequivocally poop the bed when things get tough. They lose games at home. I think we are 2-6 in the last 2 years at home SEC games, which is unacceptable against teams like South Carolina and Missouri and Vanderbilt and whoever else has walked into Kroger Field and stomped us on our own field. As a guy with season tickets that goes to every home game, that blows. So, with that all being out in the open, let's talk about the schedule. And let's not forget, he tried to go to A&M. I don't care what any media says that the job was never accepted and it was never serious. I don't care. There was too much smoke to not have a fire. So I don't care what they say. He thought about it. He wanted it. Some of his coaches would not go with him, and I still have a grudge because of that. But I still have my season tickets that I paid for. Just made the last payment on them, thank God. But I'm not 100% not upset with Mark Stoops. So with that being said, let's talk about the schedule. They open up at home against Southern Miss. Man, there's always one of these bad games that are closer than they should be. And I called it last year, and I called it the year before with they have an M, Middle Tennessee maybe. Whoever we played a couple years ago that I believe it was maybe 2021, and it was way closer of a game than it should have been. But I got a feeling it's going to be Southern Miss this year. It could also be Murray State. I'm just not sure. But I think either way you win. Let's see, my parents starting to believe that Stoops doesn't actually care about the job and he's going to get paid a lot. I feel like it'll be true if he doesn't improve the program any further. Man, well, first off, I don't think he's going to coach a lot longer. I think he's got maybe another 5 years in him and then he's done. So I don't think he doesn't care. I just think like he has this arrogance about him of look how bad you were and look how good you are now. You don't get to say anything to me. And I just think that is such a terrible. I don't care if you're Nick Saban. Like, you don't get to act like that, especially not here. Like, okay, you're the most winning coach and you've done great things and you've won good bowl games. But you don't get to rest on the fact that we sucked. You're a victim of your own success, buddy. Like, you've raised the bar. So don't get mad at the fans when we expect you to hit that bar and you don't. Like, that's what drives me crazy about Mark Stoops. He has a huge arrogance about him, and he's very humble, and I'm sure a very nice person. I've never got to meet him. Seems very nice. Seems like a very hardworking guy. I don't believe that he doesn't care. I just think that this might be his ceiling. And if you're 40 plus and you say, well, if this was our ceiling, so be it, because we used to go 2-10. Well, you suck too. That's an awful mindset to have. Also, since the SEC is going to get harder and possibly have 9 conference games in the future, that means the chance of getting a bowl game is going to be a lot harder. Absolutely, it's going to be a lot harder to hit a bowl game. These bad teams mean a lot more now, as does Louisville in winning a couple SEC games. We'll talk about it as we go through. But yeah, bowl games we kind of got accustomed to. This year specifically, there is a fine line between 6-6 or maybe 5-6 and like a 10-2 type of season. Very fine line, and it could go south in a hurry if Stoops craps the bed like he has before. Okay. Anyway, Southern Miss, I think we win. I hope we win. That is the first game of the season. It's a night game, 7:45 kickoff. So it's going to be crazy in there. August 31st. So literally just over 2 months away. It's coming up fast. So our first game of the year is going to be a night game at home. Crazy. I'm sure the crowd's going to be nuts. So I think we win that game. And then we get South Carolina at home. One of the changes in the schedule this year, 1 out of your first 4 games has to be an SEC team. Typically, we've done 3 bad, 1 SEC. This year, we're doing 2 and 2. So that's a little change in the schedule. South Carolina, it's a primetime game with the new TV deal. They've redone how they do all these games. 3:30 is a primetime game now on ABC. So it's going to be our first ABC game, first primetime game against South Carolina at home. They've gotten us the past 2 years. This game could determine the rest of your season. If you win it, you have a chance to have a really good year. If you lose it, in theory, you could have a good year, but you probably won't. So I'm going to say we win this one. We finally get South Carolina back. They don't have Spencer Rattler anymore. They don't have that one. I think he was a receiver that was really good. And Kentucky has a lot of talent. Got a new OC in Bush Hamden, but you got Dane, you got Barryon, you got BVG, you got Deion Walker. You got a bunch of guys. So you got a lot of talent. You have to beat South Carolina. You better do it at home. Then you have Georgia. That's a loss. We can dream. Vince Marrow can say what he wants. We're not beating Georgia. It would be cool, though. But that's at home as well, 7:30. Again, going to be a really good environment. Probably ain't going to amount to nothing, but it'll be cool. And then you have Ohio University at home. That's a 12:45 kickoff, so going to be an early game. Crowd's probably going to suck. That could be the game that sneaks up on you. But I still think you win it. But, upset alert there, especially when you travel to Ole Miss the week after that. Again, if this is one of those games. This game specifically, like I said, South Carolina could dictate the season, but assuming you beat them, this game could be like you win it and you rock it. But if you lose it, you're not out of it. You still have a good season with losing this game, but this game could be what kickstarts a really good season. I personally, they can never give us a late game in the Grove. I would travel to there if I could. If it was a night game, but I'm not making the trip for a noon kickoff. So, sucks. But, like I said, this game could be the game that, rockets the season. If you could start out, 4-1 and win at Ole Miss, now we're talking, this could be a good year. But I think they ultimately lose to Ole Miss. So that sits us through the first 5 games at 3-2, not the start we're used to seeing, but the SEC stuff now. You got Texas, Oklahoma. We're getting Ole Miss and play some Missouri, so it's going to be a little tougher. Come home, play Vanderbilt. I think we beat Vanderbilt. I'm not going to, harp on that. And then you get really into the meat of the schedule. So right now I got us at 4-2 with games. The next game at Florida. I know we've beaten Florida 3 in a row. We've beaten them something 5 out of the last 7 or something like that. But Florida's getting better. They're getting good, guys. And I know we killed them last year with Ray Davis, but I don't know. I'm going to pick us to win, but this is a toss-up. I feel like there's so many toss-up games this year, and I'll recap it after we get done. I'll pick us to win. We'll go 5-2. And then we got Auburn at home, another coin flip game. I know they suck right now, but it's going to be close, and it's at home. And, man, I could see us losing both of those games and going south. I'll pick us to win it at 6-2. And then you have Tennessee at Tennessee. That's a loss until they prove me otherwise. And I don't want to hear Stoops talk about how we can beat them and blah, blah, blah. We suck against Tennessee. We're going to suck against Tennessee. That's a loss. Then we got Murray State. Should be a win. They're a pretty good, FBS team or FCS, whichever one it is, FCS. And so could be close, but I'll pick us to win. So that puts us at, I believe, 6-3. And then you got Texas and Louisville. You're going to lose to Texas. They're preseason ranked number 3. We're not that good. They're just as good as Georgia is, and we're not beating Georgia. So we're not beating Texas, not in Austin. It will be fun to see, though. It'll be cool to get to experience that. So we're going to lose that game. So that puts us at 6-4. Or my math is not adding up here. And then we have Louisville. So let's see. As of right now, going into Louisville, beat Southern Miss, beat South Carolina, lose to Georgia. That's 2-1. Ohio is 3-1. Ole Miss is 3-2. Vanderbilt is 4-2. Florida 5-2. Auburn 6-2. Actually, you know what? I don't know which one it'll be. Likely at Florida because it's away. I think we lose one of those games. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I think we lose one of them. It could be Auburn at home. It could be Florida on the road. But I think we lose one. Like I said, Kentucky and Stoops crap down their leg at least once a year. And it's just going to happen. You're coming off of Vandy. You're looking ahead to Auburn at home. Maybe you've beaten Florida so much. Maybe you're not that worried about them. I don't know. I think it could be a loss at Florida. I'm not sure. But either way, we'll say we lose one of them. So that puts us 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, 4-2, 5-3. Loss at Tennessee puts you at 5-4. Win against Missouri State. Murray State is 6-4. Loss at Texas at 6-5. Now I don't know about you. We might have a good team and still be 6-5, but it just don't feel good. And we're waiting until November to be bowl eligible, which hasn't been the case recently. So I think there's going to be a lot of fans kind of down on Stoops at this point. And then your entire season, the whole kit and caboodle, is going to hang on Louisville. Do you go 7-5 and go to a Music City Bowl, or do you go 6-6 and go to some bowl that nobody cares about? Like, that's where we're at this year. I wish I could get on here and be like, guys, we have a good quarterback. We have great receivers, good running backs, a first-round pick in Deion Walker. We are going 9-3. I wish I could come on here and tell you that, and it's not out of the cards. And I'm scared to pick a win against Louisville because they whipped us last year until the very end of the game. It's at home. I will pick us to beat Louisville just so we don't lose to Tennessee and Louisville. And that puts us at 7-5. And that's probably about right. And then we go to a bowl game we don't care about, like we did last year. We had a good opponent last year and still lost. So to say I'm not as optimistic or excited about this season as I have been in the past is probably the truth. But like I said, we are this close to being really good. But we're also this close to being really bad. I'll give you the best case and worst case, and then we'll get out of here. Best case scenario, you beat Southern Miss, you beat South Carolina, lose to Georgia, beat Ohio, beat Ole Miss, beat Vanderbilt, Florida and Auburn, probably still lose to Tennessee, lose to Texas, beat Murray State, beat Louisville, and you're looking at 9-3. So that's probably your absolute best case scenario. Of course, if you pull out a win against Tennessee, then it's better. But if you do that, you're probably losing somewhere else against a team you shouldn't. So I think 9-3 is the absolute peak. But let's look at how easy it could be to lose as well. I mean, you could just as easily lose to Louisville, lose to Texas, lose to Tennessee. Oh, no. It went blank on me. What happened? Why did it go blank? Okay, here we go. Okay, so 9-3 is our peak. Here's your worst case scenario. Lose to South Carolina, which we've done the past 2 years. Lose to Georgia. Lose to Ole Miss, which we've done in the past 2 years. Lose to Vanderbilt, something we've done in the past 2 years. I don't think we will. That one's probably, okay, we'll take the Vanderbilt loss out and pretend it's not possible. Wink, wink. Very possible to lose to Florida and Auburn. That's 5 losses. Lose to Tennessee, Texas, and Louisville. That's like 8 losses. So you're looking at a 4-8 season. Now, I don't think there's a world this team goes 4-8, but it's not impossible. So Mark Stoops, for me, and under no means am I putting Mark Stoops on a hot seat, but for me to continue to buy into this team, this is supposed to be the biggest collection of talent he's had. Supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks he's had outside of maybe Levis. The best receivers he's had. A running back from Ohio State. A first-round D lineman. A really solid and experienced defense with a secondary that got killed last year, but you're returning a lot of guys and there's NFL talent back there. You brought in a ton of talent. This might have to be like my make or break year for Mark Stoops. If he can't put up at minimum a 7-win season this year, I'm not saying we should fire him because it's hard to fire the best coach you've ever had, and that sets a bad precedent. Is it time he retires? I don't know. You guys let me know. But now if he goes 8-4, 9-3, hey, I'm back in. Stoops is the guy. He has taken the doubt out of me, but as of right now, I have a lot of doubts about Mark Stoops. But that doesn't change the fact that I will be at every home game cheering and going just as crazy as I can go. And I didn't, we did that whole thing, and I never switched it to the football banner down here. So you guys let me know. Do you still trust Mark Stoops? I do, but it rides on this season. If this season goes poorly, my trust is gone. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear my goofy dogs out there, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Anyway, make sure, I've only said it at the beginning, but if you're still here, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Click the notification bell, like, comment, share, all of that stuff. Like I said, guys, I'm going on vacation at the end of next week. I will try to get a video out sometime in this upcoming week. Let me know what you guys want to see. Do you want to see more football content, basketball content? What are you wanting? I can say without a doubt when I get back from vacation, like the last week or two of July, it's going to be football. We're heading into football season. So if you want to see anything else before then, let me know now. I will see you guys next week. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another great live stream. I appreciate you guys. Again, like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Tell them to subscribe. Tell your mom, dad, grandma. Make fake emails and subscribe. I don't care. Keep subscribing to the channel. I appreciate all of you guys getting on here and watching, and I'll see you all later. Go Cats, guys.